Welcome, guys. Welcome to week 5, the introduction to measurement. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about is the two different systems that we use for measurement. Okay, and if you've watched any of the Brain Pop videos, you've really already learned about this, but I'm going to explain it again. Okay, we have two different systems. We have what's called the customary system and the metric system. Okay, the customary system on the left of my star chart here is what we use in the United States. Okay, we are pretty much the only country, I think there's one other country besides us somewhere in the world that still uses the customary system. Okay, the rest of the world uses the metric system. And the reason that is because look at these conversions. Okay, look at these customary conversions. 1 mile is equal to 1,760 yards. Now look at metric. 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. These numbers are so much easier to convert because they're based on tens, hundreds, thousands, and so on. Okay, customary measurements are not so easy to work with. Okay, unfortunately, the United States is sticking with tradition and does not want to move away from the customary system. Maybe one day they will, but for now we're stuck with the customary system, so that's what we're going to be learning. Now in science, we do use the metric system. So it is important for us to also learn the metric system because they use those units in science all over the world, including the United States. But outside of science, we use the customary system, okay? Now, what are some things we measure? Okay, the one that we're going to talk about in this video is length. Okay, but we also have volume and capacity. And we're talking liquid volume and capacity here. How much liquid can a container hold? That is liquid volume and capacity. Okay, we're also going to talk about weight and mass. Okay, we talk about that a lot in science. We use the beams and the balances and the spring scale for weight, and then the balances for mass. Okay, and then also we're going to work on time, which you guys are pretty familiar with time. All right, so like I said, this video is going to focus just on length. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the different measurements of length. We're going to start with the customary units, and we're going to talk about some benchmark measurements, okay? And you may remember benchmarks, not just the tests that we take throughout the year, but like benchmark fractions, things like that. A benchmark is just it's a known value. It's something that we know that helps us with something that we don't know, okay? So for instance, for inches, they've given us an example of a small paper clip. A small paper clip is about 1 inch, and here's one in real life. It's a little bit bigger than what they have printed there. Okay, so that's about 1 inch. Okay, now some other examples are the width of a watch face. So the watch that you wear on your arm, the face part of it, the flat part, whether it's a circle or whether it's a square, is about 1 inch. Okay, the width of a bottle cap. So if you go to the store and you get a soda, you say you get a Coke or a Dr. Pepper, and it's in one of those plastic bottles instead of the can, that lid on the top is about 1 inch. Okay, the width of a beetle, I missed that one. If you've ever seen a beetle, it's about 1 inch long. Also the length of an eraser top, and they're not talking about a pencil eraser, that's too small. We're talking about one of these bigger erasers, and they're talking about this right here. And you can see if I put it next to the paper clip there, you can see it's about 1 inch. Not exactly, I'm saying about. It's close to the same length as the paper clip. Okay, so that's 1 inch. Now, let's talk a foot. Okay, a foot is about the width of a floor tile. So if you remember what the floor looks like at school, I know it's been a while since we've been there, but if you remember, we have those square tiles on the floor, and they are 1 foot by 1 foot. That means they're 1 foot long and 1 foot wide. Okay, so it's about a foot. Okay, also the length of a shoe, and I'm not talking about your shoe because your foot is relatively small, still growing. I'm talking about like your dad or your uncle or your grandpa's shoe. Okay, it's about 1 foot long. Also, the length of a sheet of paper, the long side, not the short side, would be about 1 foot. Okay, also the height of a binder, and you can always think of a ruler. A ruler has 12 inches, it's a foot, okay? So you can always imagine that as well. Okay, so the reason we're doing this is we're trying to get a visual of what these measurements look like in our head. That creates the benchmark. Okay, next, let's talk about the yard. Okay, and I don't mean your backyard. Okay, we're talking about the measurement. All right, so they're using a door. Okay, and you may want to look around your room, whatever room you're in, see if you can find a door. Now look at the distance from the floor up to the doorknob or the handle. That is about a yard. Okay, that gives you a very good visual as to what a yard is and how long that is. Okay, another benchmark you can use is the length of a baseball bat. That's another good one. A lot of you are familiar with baseball and softball bats. Those are about a yard long. I know you have different measurements, different sizes, but generally they're about a yard long. Also a yardstick is a yard. Okay, also you have 3 of these floor tiles because 3 feet make a yard. So if you put 3 of these 1 foot tiles next to each other, that equals 3 feet, which is a yard. Okay, so that's the yard. So you can kind of tell that we're going from the smallest customary unit of length down to the largest, okay? Largest being the mile. And the mile actually measures distance, and distance is just a special form of length. It's longer, okay? So the mile, the benchmark that they're using is the distance that you would drive somewhere, okay? 4 laps around the track. Okay, you know how long it takes to get around that track. You guys have all run that track. Okay, 4 times around there is about a mile. Okay, that's about a mile. Also, if you're walking, it would take you about 15 to 20 minutes to walk a mile. So a mile is pretty long. Okay, all right, so those are customary units of length. That's what we use in the United States. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this page over. All right, so now I'm going to use information page, this is 4, information page 4, okay? All right, so we're still talking length, but this time we're using the metric units, the units that they use in science and everywhere else in the world, okay? Starting with the smallest unit, that would be the millimeter, okay? The benchmark that they're using for a millimeter is a pencil point. I'm going to use a pinpoint, but there it is. That's about a millimeter. It's very small. Okay. Also, the width of the hands on a small clock face. Okay. So we're talking an analog clock, not a digital clock, obviously. So the hands on the clock, a small one, not real wide ones, would be, I would say the second hand would probably be about a millimeter wide. Okay. Also, this is a good one. The width of a piece of spaghetti. We know what spaghetti, how wide that is. Not how long it is, but how wide it is. That's about a millimeter. And also the width of a grain of rice. Not the length of it, but the width. Okay, that would be about a millimeter. Okay, now, centimeter. Okay, they're using your pinky finger. Okay, so they're saying the width of your pinky finger. This would be the length. Not talking about the length. We're talking about the width. Okay, from side to side here. That would be about a centimeter. Okay. Now the length of a grain of rice. Up here for the millimeter, the width is a millimeter. The length of it is about a centimeter. Okay. The width of a pencil would be about a centimeter. Or the width of a tube of chapstick. I know some of you girls out there are addicted to chapstick. Okay, so you'll know the tube of chapstick, that's about a centimeter wide, not long. Okay, then we have a meter. Okay, so the yard in customary units was from the floor to the doorknob. The meter is a little more than that. It's a few inches more than that. Okay, so just a couple inches higher than the doorknob would be about a meter. Okay, still the length of a baseball bat is a good measure, a benchmark measure for a meter. Okay, also the length of 3/4 tiles, because a meter is just a couple of inches larger than a yard is. Okay, then we move up to the kilometer, or some of you say kilometer, either way, tomato, tomato. Okay, so it's also distance. The kilometer measures distance and how far you drive, but it's a little shorter than a mile, okay? So if we think back to customary units, the mile, it would take you 4 times around the track to make a mile, okay? But in kilometers, it only takes you 2.5 laps. So a kilometer, you could say, is about half the distance of a mile, okay? So it's kind of halfway in between, okay? And it's how far you can walk in 10 to 15 minutes. So to be more precise, it's 62 hundredths of a mile, okay? It's not a full mile, it's less than that, okay? So those are our metric units of length, okay? So now what I want to do is go through some approximate length questions using those benchmarks that I just went over. And we're going to be using practice page 10 first. So you have P10 first. We're going to do 5 questions here, and then you'll do the other 5. And then we will be using practice page 11. See 11 at the bottom. And we will do 5 of those questions, and you will do the other 5. Okay? All right, here we go. Number 1 says, about how long is a bike? Okay, answer choice A says 4 inches. So if I go back and I look at my customary length benchmarks, an inch is about the size of a paperclip or a watch face or a bottle cap or the top of that eraser. Okay, so think about your bicycle outside. Would it make sense to have 4 paper clips? Let's see if I can get 4 of them here. To equal the length of your bicycle. That's kind of silly, isn't it? Not near long enough, okay? So answer choice A is not going to be right, okay? B says 4 centimeters. Okay, now centimeters are not customary units, those are metric units. So I'm going to turn my paper over, my benchmark paper. Here's the centimeter, okay? Remember, the centimeter is about the width of your pinky. Okay, well, if I put 4 pinkies side by side, that's not going to equal the length of your bike either, okay? So we can eliminate B. Now, 4 feet, okay? That could be 4 rulers. That could be 4 floor tiles, 4 men's shoes, 4 pieces of paper long, okay? So get that kind of pictured in your head. Okay, maybe, maybe not. We'll think on that one and come back. Okay, D says 4 yards. Okay, think about 4 yards. Remember the yard? The benchmark for a yard is the distance from the floor to your doorknob, okay? Or it could be 4 baseball bats, okay? We're not just talking about 1, we're talking about 4 yards, okay? 4 yards. So since they're talking about 4 yards, that's going to be a little too much, okay? So if you look at the door, let me show you this again. The handle is almost halfway up, okay? So that would be 2 doors. If I was able to put another door on top of here, that would be 2 doors long, okay? That's too long for your bicycle, okay? So the best answer choice would be answer choice C, 4 feet long, okay? And on these questions, some of them can get really tricky where 2 of the answer choices may be really close and you may think that both of them are possible, but you really have to reason them out, okay? And that's why we give you these benchmarks to help you reason them out, just like I did with answer choice C and D. Okay, all right, number 2, about how long is a Band-Aid? Okay, well, 3 feet, okay, a floor tile, the length of a sheet of paper, no way. A Band-Aid is not that long, so I can get rid of that one. Centimeters, the benchmark for a centimeter we said was the width of the pinky. Okay. 3 centimeters, that would be 3 pinkies. Possibly, let's put question mark by it. All right, 3 inches, that would be 3 paper clips. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I've seen Band-Aids that long. Okay, question mark by that one. 3 miles, no way, right? Miles, 4 laps around the track, that is ridiculous. So it cannot be miles. So I'm down to 3 centimeters and 3 inches. Okay, so if I'm thinking centimeters, okay, that would be 3 pinkies side by side. There's 1, 2, and imagine 1 more. That's a pretty short Band-Aid. And I know there are some small ones, but your typical Band-Aid is not going to be that small. Okay, the best answer choice out of all of those is going to be the 3 inches, where I put the 3 paper clips side by side. That's your best answer. Okay, so we're gonna pick C. All right, now number 3. About how long is a paint set? We're talking those watercolors that you would paint with like when you were in elementary school. Okay, 11 inches. Well, we said this is an inch. Okay, that's also 1 less inch than a ruler. So if you can imagine that, that could be. So I'm gonna put a question mark there. All right, B says 11 centimeters. Remember, the centimeters are the width of your pinky again, the width of your pinky. 11 of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Seems a little small to me. Seems a little small. Okay, I'm gonna put a question mark by that one. Okay. 11 feet. Okay, well, if you think about that floor tile, or the length of a shoe, or the length of the piece of paper, you know, that seems a little bit long to me. Like that's a little bit too long, okay? We're talking 11 of those, okay? That's gonna be really, really long. So we're gonna eliminate that one, okay? If we were just talking about 1 foot, then maybe it would be close. But they're talking about 11 of those. That's tall. That's taller than you are, okay? And last I have 11 yards. Well, yards are even bigger than feet, right? Yards are even bigger than feet. Okay, so if feet aren't going to be right, then yards aren't going to be right. That's way too long, okay? So out of these two, and I can use my star chart, because on my star chart, I have rulers, right? Here's centimeters. Here's 11 centimeters. So you have an idea of what that looks like. Now here, this is 8, okay? It doesn't go all the way to 11, but you can kind of have an idea of what that would look like. It's almost the length of a sheet of paper, okay? So I'm gonna go with the 11 inches because those things are pretty long. I just think that 11 centimeters is just too small to get all of those paints on there, okay? Number 4, how wide is the state of Texas? And they don't mean the one that's printed. They mean in real life, how wide is the state of Texas? Okay, 790 feet. That means you would take about 790 steps to get across the state of Texas, okay? The width of the state of Texas, we're not talking so much about length, but we're talking about distance, okay? So you have to remember which unit of measurement talks about distance, okay? In customary units, that would be miles, and in metric units, that would be kilometers. So let's look at our answer choices. I don't see kilometers in here anywhere, but I do see miles. Okay, so since we're talking about distance, miles is going to be our best answer. Okay, and number 5, about how long is a car? Not this car, but a car. Okay, 4 inches. Okay, 4 inches. Way too small, right? 4 feet. 4 of your dad's feet. Or for some of you, how tall you are. Okay, that's too small. Okay, 4 feet is going to be too small. Think about your height. okay, about your height. Your car, if you were to lay down next to your car, don't do that. Don't do that, okay? But if you could, you would see that it's longer than your height, okay? So that one is not going to be correct. 4 yards, okay? Remember, a yard is like a yardstick, or from the floor to the doorknob. That's about a yard, okay? So think of 4 of those, end on end on end on end, okay? That's possible. 4 baseball bats, okay? Also, look at D, 4 miles. Miles measures distance, okay? That's really too much, because if you think about the distance it is 4 times around the track, that's way, way too much, okay? So C is going to be your best answer there, okay? Now our approximate metric length page, which is practice page 11. This is going to have more of the metric units on it. Okay, so about how tall is a coffee cup? Okay, so first they say 14 meters. So I'm on the metric side. The meter is a little bit taller than the doorknob. No, that is way, way too tall. Okay, 14 millimeters. Okay, remember the point is a millimeter. So 14 of those next to each other. That's still pretty darn small. Okay, so that doesn't make much sense. Okay, 14 centimeters. Remember, centimeters are the width of your pinky. And I'm going to use the star chart. There's 14 centimeters right there. It kind of depends on what cup they're talking about. If they're talking about a mug, or if they're talking about one of these kinds of cups that you would get at Starbucks. So I'm kind of torn about this one. So I'm going to look at the last answer and see if it makes sense. Okay, D says 14 kilometers. Okay, remember, kilometers measure distance in metric units like miles measure distance in customary units. Okay, so that's going to be way too much. Okay, so our best answer is going to be C. Number 2, about how tall is a 1-story house? Okay, 5 millimeters. Okay, there's your millimeters, the dot. Way too small, right? Way, way too small. Okay, 5 centimeters. There's 5 centimeters. Nope, way too small. We wouldn't measure that in centimeters. Okay, 5 meters tall. Well, that's a little bit taller than the doorknob, a little bit longer than a baseball bat. If you stack 5 of those on top of each other, I don't know. Let me check D and see if it makes more sense. D says 5 kilometers. Okay, so look back at the kilometers. 2.5 laps around the track. Does that make sense? No, that's way too much, okay? So while I think my house is bigger than 5 meters, it's the best one out of all of these, okay? 3, about how far is it to drive from San Antonio, Texas to Orlando, Florida? So they're driving. This is distance again, okay? So we're either looking for miles or kilometers, but here we're talking about metric units. So they want us to find kilometers, okay? So let's look at our answers. There it is. There's kilometers, okay? Number 4, about how tall are the pyramids in Egypt? Okay, A says 139 meters, okay? Remember, the meter is a little bit taller than the doorknob or a little bit longer than a baseball bat. Okay, so if we had 139 of those pyramids are pretty tall. Okay, so that could be, I'm not sure, but let me put a question mark by it. Okay, this says 139 centimeters. That's really too small, because if you look at your star chart, there are 20 centimeters here, okay? And that's pretty small, all right? So that's not really gonna make a whole lot of sense. Well, if that's not going to make sense, 139 millimeters is not going to make sense. Remember that your millimeters are the pencil point, okay? And they're also, if you look at your star chart, these smaller lines on your centimeter ruler, those are millimeters. That's teeny, teeny, tiny. So even if you had 139 of those, it would not be enough. Okay, last we have 139 kilometers. Okay, kilometers, again, that measures distance. That's a long way. That's 2.5 laps around a track. That's just too high. That's too much. Okay, so our best answer out of those is going to be A. And the last one that we're going to do, number 5, about how long is a crocodile? Okay, so we have 1.7. Ooh, we got to pay attention to these decimals. So we have a little bit greater than 1 of each unit. Okay, and it's almost 2 whole units. It's a little less than 2 whole units. Okay, so we're saying 1 7/10 of a kilometer here. Okay, so we have 1 kilometer, which is 2.5 laps, plus a little more. That's too much for the length of an alligator or crocodile. Okay, 1.7 millimeters. Okay, well, there's 1 pencil point. If I could do 0.7 of another one there, that's too small, way too small for a crocodile. Okay, C says 1.7 meters. Okay, so the meter is a little bit higher than the doorknob, a little bit longer than a baseball bat. Okay, but it's not just 1, it's 7/10 of another one, so it's almost 2 of those long. Okay, I've seen some crocodiles that are about that long. I'm going to put a question mark there and check the last one. The last one says 1.7 centimeters. Remember, the centimeter is the width of your pinky, okay? That's just too small, okay? So that one's not correct. C is our best answer, okay? I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for our next measurement video.